on crafting a powerful sense of self. Today we're diving into the 5 boundaries that make they respect you more. These aren't just rules for relationships, they're the blueprint for becoming the most authentic, respected version of you. Imagine a life where no one dares cross your line. Not because you demand it, but because your presence commands it. Stick around until the end, because these 5 boundaries will transform how the world sees you and how you see yourself. If you're ready to stop chasing respect and start embodying it, hit that subscribe button and let's get started. What if the moment someone disrespects you is the exact moment you decide who you are? Carl Jung, the legendary psychologist, believed that our shadow, the hidden parts of ourselves we avoid facing, can either weaken us or become the source of our greatest strength. When you tolerate disrespect, you're letting your shadow win, shrinking your sense of self to fit someone else's narrative. But when you refuse to accept it, you step into what Carl Jung called individuation, the journey to becoming your truest, most powerful self. This is the first boundary: never tolerate disrespect. It's not about being harsh or confrontational. It's about drawing a line in the sand and standing behind it with unshakable clarity. Let's break it down and see why this boundary changes everything. Disrespect comes in many forms, and it's not always loud or obvious. It's the friend who interrupts you mid-sentence to check their phone. It's the colleague who dismisses your ideas in a meeting with a smirk. It's the partner who makes a sarcastic jab at your dreams in front of others. These micro moments chip away at your dignity, and if you let them slide, you send a silent message. My worth is negotiable. Carl Jung taught us that our psyche craves integrity, alignment between who we are inside and how we show up in the world. Every time you allow someone to cross that line, you're betraying that integrity. And deep down, people sense it. They don't respect you more for being nice or understanding. They respect you less because you've shown them your boundaries are flexible. Let's paint a picture with a story. Meet John, a 32-year-old graphic designer with a passion for his craft. John's been working at a small creative agency for years, pouring his heart into every project. But his boss, Sarah, has a habit of dismissing his ideas in team meetings. That's not bad, John, but let's go with something more practical, she'd say, her tone dripping with condescension. At first, John brushed it off. He didn't want to seem difficult or rock the boat, but each dismissal felt like a small cut. And over time, those cuts started to bleed. His confidence waned, his creativity dulled, and his colleagues began to overlook him too. Why? Because John was tolerating disrespect. And in doing so, he was teaching others it was okay to treat him as less. One day, John hit a breaking point. During a meeting, Sarah cut him off mid-pitch with a laugh, saying, "John, stick to designing, not dreaming." Instead of shrinking, John paused, looked her in the eye, and said calmly, "Sarah, I'd appreciate it if you let me finish my thoughts. If that happens again, I'll step out of the meeting." The room went silent. Sarah mumbled an apology, and something shifted. From that day on, John's ideas were heard. His colleagues started seeking his input. Even Sarah began to treat him with a new level of respect. Why? Because John drew a line. He didn't yell or beg. He simply made it clear that disrespect wasn't an option. This is the power of refusing to tolerate disrespect. It's not about controlling others. It's about controlling how you allow others to treat you. Carl Jung's concept of the shadow comes into play here. Our shadow holds our fears. Fear of conflict. Fear of being disliked. A fear of standing alone. When you tolerate disrespect, You're letting those fears run the show. But when you confront it calmly and firmly, you're integrating your shadow, turning fear into strength. You're telling the world, this is who I am, and I won't let anyone diminish it. So, how do you put this boundary into practice? First, recognize disrespect in all its forms. It's not just insults or yelling, it's the subtle jabs, the eye rolls, the dismissive tones. Second, address it immediately, but without emotion. For example, if a friend mocks your goals, you might say, I don't appreciate being spoken to like that. Let's keep this respectful. Your tone should be calm, direct, and final. Third, set a consequence and stick to it. If the behavior repeats, act on your boundary, whether that's leaving the conversation, distancing yourself, or walking away entirely. The key is consistency. If you say you won't tolerate something, you have to mean it. Otherwise, your words are just noise. Here's another example to bring this home. Imagine Lisa, a young professional in a relationship with someone who constantly texts other people during their time together. At first, Lisa ignored it, thinking, it's not a big deal. But over time, she felt invisible, like her presence didn't matter. One evening, she decided enough was enough. She looked at her partner and said, when we're together, I expect your full attention. If you're distracted again, I'm going to step away. The next time it happened, Lisa didn't argue. She quietly left the room and spent the evening focusing on herself. Her partner noticed. The behavior stopped, and their connection deepened because Lisa showed she valued herself too much to accept being ignored. This boundary isn't just about relationships. It's about every area of your life. At work, with friends, with family. The principle remains. When you tolerate disrespect, you teach others it's okay to devalue you. Carl Jung believed that true growth comes from aligning your outer actions with your inner truth. By refusing to let others cross your line, you're not just earning their respect, you're building a stronger, more authentic self. Let's be clear, this isn't about being rigid or punishing others. It's about honoring your worth. When you refuse to tolerate disrespect, you create a ripple effect. People around you start to adjust their behavior. They sense your strength, your clarity, your refusal to play small. And here's the beautiful part. You don't need to raise your voice or prove your point. Your boundary speaks for you. As Carl Jung would say, it's about becoming whole not by pleasing others, but by standing firm in who you are. So, the next time someone crosses your line, pause it, take a breath, remember John and Lisa. Then, with calm certainty, state your boundary and mean it. You're not just protecting your dignity, you're crafting a life where respect is non-negotiable. Stay tuned for the next boundary, because this is just the beginning of unlocking the respect you deserve. What if the most powerful thing you could do for yourself isn't chasing success, love, or validation, but guarding your peace like it's your most valuable asset? Carl Jung, the visionary psychologist, believed that true strength comes from individuation, the process of becoming your whole, authentic self. And at the heart of that journey lies your inner peace, a sacred space where clarity, purpose, and power converge. The second boundary, protect your inner peace, isn't just about avoiding chaos. It's about designing a life where nothing and no one can shake your core. When you make peace non-negotiable, you don't just earn respect, you become a force others can't ignore. Let's dive into why this boundary is a game changer and how you can start building it today. Your inner peace is your fortress. It's the quiet strength that lets you make decisions without being swayed by drama, doubt, or distraction, but most people don't protect it. They leak it. Every time you say yes to a toxic conversation, every time you let someone's mood dictate your day, every time you scroll through endless negativity or stay in spaces that drain you, you're giving away pieces of your peace. Carl Jung taught that our psyche thrives when we align our outer world with our inner truth. When you let chaos infiltrate your mind, you're not just losing focus, you're losing yourself. And when you lose yourself, respect from others follows. Let's bring this to life with a story. Meet Sarah, a 8-year-old marketing coordinator who always prided herself on being the go-to person for her friends. If someone needed to vent, Sarah was there, listening to hours of complaints about relationships, work, or life. She'd respond to every text, even at 2 a.m., and show up to every gathering, even when she was exhausted. At first, it felt good to be needed, but over time, Sarah noticed she was always on edge, snapping at her co-workers, struggling to focus, and feeling like her life wasn't her own. Her friends didn't respect her time. They expected her to drop everything for them. Why? Because Sarah hadn't set a boundary to protect her peace. She was letting everyone else's chaos become her own. One day, Sarah read about Carl Jung's idea of individuation, the journey to become whole by prioritizing your inner world. She decided to make a change. She started saying no to late-night venting sessions. "I care about you, but I can't talk right now. Let's catch up tomorrow," she'd say. She turned off her phone notifications after 9 p.m. and began spending her evenings reading Carl Jung's works or journaling her own thoughts. She even skipped a few gatherings filled with gossip and drama, choosing instead to take walks alone, letting the quiet recharge her. At first, her friends pushed back, calling her distant or selfish, but something incredible happened. The ones who truly valued her adapted. They started respecting her time, inviting her to meaningful conversations instead of dumping their problems. And Sarah, she felt stronger, clearer, and more in control than ever. Her presence shifted. People noticed her calm, her focus, and they began to treat her with a new level of respect. This is the magic of protecting your inner peace. It's not about shutting people out. It's about choosing who and what gets access to your energy. Carl Jung believed that our inner world shapes our outer reality. When you let chaos, whether it's a toxic friend, a draining job, or endless social media noise invade your peace, you're handing over your power. But when you guard it fiercely, you signal to the world that your time, your energy, and your mind are sacred. That's when people start to see you differently. They don't just respect you, they're drawn to you. Because a person at peace is rare in a world full of noise. So, how do you build this boundary? Start by auditing your life. Look at every input to your phone, your relationships, your habits, your schedule, and ask, does this protect or poison my peace? If it poisons, cut it out immediately. No explanations. No apologies. If a friend constantly brings drama, limit your time with them. If social media leaves you anxious, set strict boundaries on your scrolling. If your workspace is cluttered, clean it up. Because physical chaos breeds mental chaos. Next, create rituals that anchor your peace. Maybe it's 10 minutes of meditation each morning, inspired by Carl Jung's practice of active imagination to connect with your inner self. Maybe it's a daily walk where you leave your phone behind and let your thoughts breathe. Whatever it is, make it non-negotiable. Here's another example to drive this home. Consider Alex, a 5-year-old entrepreneur who was always on. His phone buzzed constantly with emails, client demande, and group chats that never slept. He'd respond instantly, even during family dinners, thinking it made him look dedicated. But he was burned out, irritable, and his team at work started taking him for granted, piling on more demands because they knew he'd always say yes. One day, Alex stumbled across Carl Jung's idea that peace is the foundation of clarity. He decided to set a boundary. No work, emails after 7 p.m., and no replying to non-urgent messages on weekends. He also started scheduling thinking time each morning. No phone, just a notebook and his thoughts. At first, his clients and team pushed back, but Alex held firm. Over time, they adjusted. His team began respecting his boundaries, and his clients valued his focus even more. Alex didn't just reclaim his peace, he reclaimed his life. His decisions became sharper, his confidence grew, and people started treating him like a leader, not a doormat. Protecting your inner peace isn't selfish, it's essential. Carl Jung taught that the journey to wholeness requires us to prioritize our inner world over external noise. When you say no to chaos, you're saying yes to clarity, purpose, and strength. You're telling the world, my peace is my power, and I won't trade it for anything. And here's the beautiful part: when you protect your peace, you don't just earn respect, you inspire it. People start to see you as a rock in a storm, someone who doesn't bend to every whim or crisis. They don't just want to be around you, they want to be like you. So, take a moment right now. Think about one thing in your life that's stealing your peace. A person, a habit, a commitment. What would happen if you set a boundary to protect yourself? Imagine the freedom, the clarity, the respect that would follow. Start small. Say no to one draining conversation. Turn off your phone for an hour, or walk away from a situation that feels chaotic. As Carl Jung would say, your inner peace is the key to unlocking your truest self. Guard it like gold, because it is. Stay tuned for the next boundary, because we're just getting started on building a life where respect flows naturally. What if the secret to being unforgettable isn't about how much you share, but how much you hold back? Carl Jung, the brilliant mind behind modern psychology, taught us about the persona, the mask we wear to navigate the world. But when you reveal everything, every thought, every fear, every dream, you strip away the mystery that makes you magnetic. The third boundary, keep your mystery, is about mastering the art of selective sharing. It's not about hiding who you are. It's about letting others earn the privilege of knowing you. When you guard your inner world, you don't just earn respect, you create a pull that draws people closer, eager to discover the depths you've chosen not to lay bare. Let's explore why this boundary is so powerful and how you can wield it to transform how others see you. In a world that celebrates oversharing, mystery is a rare currency. Social media, casual conversations, even relationships often pressure us to spill every detail: our struggles, our insecurities, our past. But Carl Jung warned that revealing too much too soon can dilute your presence. Your persona, the version of you that others see, needs space to breathe, to intrigue, to invite curiosity. When you lay everything out, you don't create closeness, you create familiarity. And familiarity can breed indifference. People stop chasing what they already know. But when you hold back, when you offer glimpses instead of blueprints, you become a puzzle they can't resist solving. That's where respect begins, not in how much you give, but in how much you make others want to earn. Let's bring this to life with a story. Meet Alex, a 33-year-old software developer who always wore his heart on his sleeve. At work, he'd share every detail of his life, his stress about deadlines, his doubts about his skills, even his messy breakup. He thought it made him relatable. But his colleagues started treating him differently. They'd nod politely but rarely sought his input on big projects. His openness didn't build trust. It made him seem like someone who needed validation, not someone to be respected. One day, Alex stumbled across Carl Jung's concept of the persona, the idea that we craft how others perceive us. He decided to experiment. Instead of venting about his struggles, he started listening more, sharing only when it added value. When a coworker asked about his weekend, he'd smile and say, "It was great. Worked on a side project. How about you?" He gave just enough to keep the conversation alive but left them wondering about the details. Over time, his team started seeking his opinions. They saw him as thoughtful, composed, someone with depth they hadn't noticed before. By keeping his mystery, Alex didn't just gain respect. He became someone people wanted to know more about. This is the power of selective sharing. When you overshare, you risk becoming what Carl Jung called a project, someone others feel they need to fix or manage. That's not the dynamic of respect. It's the dynamic of dependency. Your inner world, your thoughts, your struggles, your dreams is sacred. It's not a brochure to hand out to everyone. It's a treasure chest that opens slowly, over time, to those who've earned it. Carl Jung's teachings remind us that true intimacy comes from tension, from the dance between what's revealed and what's withheld. When you share everything up front, you kill that tension. You stop being a challenge, a mystery, a force. Instead, you become predictable. And predictability is the enemy of attraction and respect. So, how do you build this boundary? First, shift your mindset. Stop seeing openness as the path to connection. Connection grows when others feel they're discovering you, not consuming you. Start by pausing before you share. Ask yourself, does this person deserve this piece of me? Does sharing this serve my purpose? If the answer is no, hold back. Second, practice the art of deflection. When someone probes into your personal life, give a concise answer and turn the question back to them. For example, if a friend asks about a tough day, you might say, "It was challenging, but I'm handling it. What's going on with you?" This keeps you engaged without giving away your power. Third, embrace silence. Silence isn't awkward. It's magnetic. Let others fill the space. Let them wonder what's behind your calm exterior. That curiosity is what keeps them invested. Here's another example to make this real. Imagine Mia, a 27-year-old teacher in a new relationship. Early on, she felt pressured to share everything, her past heartbreaks, her fears about the future, her insecurities about her career. She thought it would bring her closer to her partner. But instead, he started pulling away, treating her more like a friend than a romantic interest. After reading about Carl Jung's idea of the persona, Mia decided to change her approach. The next time her partner asked about her day, she shared a highlight, a funny moment with her students, but left out the stress she felt. When he pressed for more, she smiled and said, "Oh, just navigating life. What about you? What's been on your mind?" Over time, he became more curious, asking deeper questions, leaning in to understand her. By keeping her mystery, Mia didn't just maintain his interest, she earned his respect. Because she showed she didn't need to overshare to feel secure. This boundary isn't about being distant or dishonest. It's about strategic vulnerability. Carl Jung taught that our psyche thrives when we balance what we reveal with what we protect. By keeping your mystery, you're not hiding, you're curating your presence. You're showing the world that access to your inner world is a privilege, not a given. And here's the beautiful part. When you hold back, you create space for others to lean in. They start to see you as someone with depth, someone worth knowing, someone who doesn't need validation to stand tall. That's when respect grows not from what you say, but from what you choose not to say. Let's take this a step further with a practical tip. Start small for 1 week. Challenge yourself to share 20% less than you normally would. If you're tempted to vent about a bad day, journal it instead. If someone asks about your plans, give a brief answer and pivot the conversation. Notice how people respond. You'll likely find they're more curious, more engaged, more respectful. Why? Because you've become a mystery they want to unravel. As Carl Jung would say, your persona is your power. Use it wisely to shape how the world sees you. This boundary transforms not just your relationships, but how you move through life. At work, you'll be seen as composed, not emotional. With friends, you'll be the one they turn to for insight, not just comfort. In love, you'll be the partner who's magnetic, not predictable. By keeping your mystery, you're not just earning respect, you're building a life where your presence alone commands it. Stay tuned for the next boundary, because we're crafting a version of you that the world can't ignore. What if the key to commanding respect isn't about hiding your emotions, but mastering them so completely that no one can shake your core? Carl Jung, the pioneering psychologist, taught us about the shadow, the parts of ourselves we suppress, like anger, fear, or insecurity, that can control us if left unchecked. Mastering your emotions doesn't mean becoming cold or robotic. It means observing your feelings, understanding their roots, and choosing how to respond with unshakable clarity. The fourth boundary, master your emotions, is about becoming the calm in the storm, the person who doesn't flinch when tested. When you control your emotional reactions, you don't just earn respect, you become a beacon of strength that others can't help but admire. Let's dive into why this boundary is transformative and how you can start building it today. Emotions are powerful, but they can betray you if you let them lead. Picture this. Someone cuts you off in a meeting, makes a snide comment, or pulls away without explanation. Your stomach tightens, your heart races, and before you know it, you're reacting, snapping back, over-explaining, or chasing validation. That's emotional reactivity. And it's a signal that your inner world is at someone else's mercy. Carl Jung believed that our shadow holds these triggers, unresolved wounds that flare up when challenged. When you react impulsively, you're letting your shadow run the show, and others sense it. They don't see strength, they see a crack in your foundation. But when you master your emotions, you create a different story. You show the world you're grounded, intentional, and in control, not of others, but of yourself. Let's ground this with a story. Meet Lisa, a 3-4-year-old project manager who always prided herself on her work ethic. During a high-stakes team meeting, a colleague, Tom, interrupted her presentation with a sarcastic jab. Lisa, are we still talking about this? Let's move on. In the past, Lisa would have felt her face flush, stumbled through a defense, or stayed silent while fuming inside. But after studying Carl Jung's work on the shadow, she decided to try something new. She paused, took a deep breath, and looked Tom in the eye. With a calm smile, she said, "Tom, I'm not done yet. I'll let you know when I'm ready to move on." The room froze. Tom nodded awkwardly, and the meeting continued. From that moment, Lisa's colleagues saw her differently. They started listening when she spoke, seeking her input on tough decisions. Why? Because Lisa didn't just respond. She commanded the moment. By mastering her emotions, she turned a potential conflict into a display of strength. This is the power of emotional mastery. It's not about suppressing what you feel. It's about creating space between what you feel and what you do. Carl Jung's concept of the shadow teaches us that our unexamined emotions can sabotage us. But when we face them, we gain control. When you pause before reacting, you're not just avoiding a fight. You're showing the world you're bigger than the moment. People respect that. They're drawn to someone who can stay steady when others would crumble. Because steadiness signals strength, and strength commands respect. So, how do you build this boundary? First, identify your triggers. What makes your pulse race or your defenses go up? Maybe it's criticism, rejection, or feeling ignored. Write them down and ask yourself, why does this hit me so hard? That's your shadow talking, and naming it is the first step to mastering it. Second, practice the pause. The next time you feel triggered, whether it's a snarky comment or a sudden cold shoulder, take 3 seconds to breathe. Those seconds are your superpower. They give you time to choose your response instead of letting your emotions choose for you. Third, respond with intention. If you need to address the situation, do it calmly, directly, and without over-explaining. For example, if someone disrespects you, you might say, "I don't appreciate that tone. Let's keep this constructive." Then let it go. Don't chase the last word. Your clarity speaks louder than any argument. Here's another example to bring this home. Imagine Ryan, a 29-year-old freelancer in a relationship. His partner, Emma, had a habit of going silent when upset, leaving Ryan to guess what went wrong. In the past, he'd bombard her with texts, apologizing for things he didn't even do, desperate to fix the tension. But after learning about Carl Jung's shadow work, Ryan realized his reactivity came from a fear of abandonment. The next time Emma went quiet, he didn't chase. He took a walk, journaled his thoughts, and gave her space. When she reached out later, he responded calmly, "I noticed you needed space, and I respect that. Let's talk when you're ready." Emma was stunned. She opened up about her own struggles, and their conversations became deeper, more honest. Ryan's emotional mastery didn't just earn her respect, it strengthened their bond, because he showed he could hold space without losing himself. Mastering your emotions isn't just about relationships, it's about how you navigate life. At work, it's staying calm when a deadline shifts or a client pushes your buttons. With friends, it's not taking the bait when someone tries to drag you into drama in your own head. It's choosing to focus on what you can control instead of spiraling over what you can't. Carl Jung taught that true growth comes from integrating the shadow, acknowledging your emotions without letting them rule you. When you do this, you become a rock in a world of chaos. People don't just respect you, they trust you, because you've shown you can trust yourself. Let's take it a step further with a practical challenge. For one day, commit to pausing before every emotional reaction. Someone cuts you off in traffic. Breathe and let it go. A coworker challenges your idea. Smile and respond when you're ready. Notice how it feels to hold that power. You'll start to see the world differently, less like a threat, more like a stage where you choose your role. As Carl Jung would say, mastering your emotions is the path to mastering your psyche. It's how you become unshakable, not just in the eyes of others, but in your own. This boundary transforms how you show up. You'll walk into rooms with a quiet confidence that makes heads turn. You'll handle conflicts without losing your cool. You'll become the person others lean on. Not because you're loud, but because you're steady. By mastering your emotions, you're not just earning respect, you're building a life where your presence alone sets the tone. Stay tuned for the final boundary, because we're on the verge of unlocking a version of you that commands respect effortlessly. What if the ultimate act of self-respect isn't holding on, but letting go? Carl Jung, the master of understanding the human psyche, spoke of self-integration, the process of aligning your life with your deepest values to become whole. The fifth boundary, be ready to walk away, is the cornerstone of that alignment. It's not about being heartless or impulsive. It's about knowing your worth so deeply that you're willing to leave anything, relationships, jobs, or situations that no longer honors it. When you show the world you're prepared to walk away from what diminishes you, you don't just earn respect, you become a force of unshakable integrity. Let's explore why this boundary is the most powerful of all, and how you can embody it starting today. Walking away sounds simple, but it's one of the hardest things to do. Why? Because it requires facing your fears. Fear of being alone. Fear of starting over. Fear of what others might think. Carl Jung taught that true growth comes from confronting these fears, integrating them into your sense of self, rather than letting them control you. When you stay in a situation that disrespects your values, whether it's a toxic relationship, a soul-crushing job, or a friendship that drains you, you're not just compromising your happiness, you're compromising your identity. Every moment you tolerate less than you deserve, you send a message to yourself and others: my worth is negotiable. But when you're ready to walk away, you flip that script. You declare that your peace, your purpose, and your self-respect are non-negotiable. Let's bring this to life with a story. Meet Mark, a 6-year-old accountant who'd been in a relationship with his partner, Claire, for 5 years. At first, their connection was electric, but over time, Claire's behavior shifted. She'd criticize Mark's ambitions, dismiss his feelings, and flake on plans without apology. Mark loved her, so he stayed, convincing himself it wasn't that bad. But deep down, he felt smaller every day, like he was losing himself to keep her. After reading about Carl Jung's idea of self-integration, living in alignment with your true self, Mark realized he was betraying his own values by staying. One evening, after Claire dismissed his attempt to talk about their issues, Mark made a decision. He calmly said, "Claire, I care about you, but I can't stay in a relationship that doesn't respect who I am. I'm done." He walked away, not with anger, but with clarity. It wasn't easy. Lonely nights followed, and doubts crept in, but Mark used that time to rebuild. He joined a gym, started a side hustle, and reconnected with friends who uplifted him. Months later, he was thriving, radiating a confidence that drew new people into his life. People who respected his boundaries because he'd shown he'd walk away from anything less. Claire even reached out, apologizing, but Mark knew he'd already moved on to a life aligned with his worth. This is the power of being ready to walk away. It's not about ultimatums or burning bridges, it's about loyalty to yourself. Carl Jung's teachings remind us that self-integration means choosing environments and relationships that reflect your highest values. When you stay in a situation that devalues you, you're fragmenting your psyche, living out of alignment with who you're meant to be. But when you walk away, you're not just leaving, you're reclaiming your power. You're telling the world, I love myself too much to settle for less. And that act of courage doesn't just change how others see you, it changes how you see yourself. So, How do you build this boundary? First, define your non-negotiables. What are the values you refuse to compromise? Maybe it's respect, honesty, or growth. Write them down and let them guide your decisions. Second, practice small acts of walking away. If a conversation turns toxic, excuse yourself politely. If a job demands more than it gives, start looking for the exit. These small steps build the muscle for bigger decisions. Third, embrace the discomfort. Walking away often feels scary. Your mind will scream, "What if I'm alone forever?" or "What if I fail?" That's your shadow talking. As Carl Jung would say, acknowledge the fear, but don't let it decide for you. Finally, focus on what you're walking toward. Leaving a bad situation isn't just about loss, it's about creating space for a life that honors you. Here's another example to make this real. Imagine Sarah, a 9-year-old graphic designer stuck in a job where her boss constantly micromanaged her and dismissed her creative ideas. She'd stay late, take on extra work, and swallow her frustration, thinking it was the safe choice. But she was miserable, and her co-workers began to take her for granted, piling on more tasks because they knew she wouldn't say no. One day, Sarah reflected on Carl Jung's idea that true strength comes from living authentically. She realized her job was suffocating her creativity and self-worth. So, she made a plan. She updated her portfolio, networked with other designers, and quietly started applying for new roles. When her boss criticized her work unfairly again, Sarah didn't argue. She handed in her resignation 2 weeks later. The fear was real, but the freedom was worth it. Within months, Sarah landed a job at a company that valued her talent. Her confidence soared, and her new colleagues respected her not just for her skills, but for the quiet strength she carried. By walking away, Sarah didn't just change her job, she changed her life. Being ready to walk away isn't about being cold, it's about being clear. It's about knowing that no relationship, no job, no situation is worth more than your self-respect. Carl Jung taught that integrating your values into your life creates a sense of wholeness that radiates outward. When you show you're willing to leave what doesn't serve you, people take notice. They see you as someone who doesn't cling, who doesn't beg, who doesn't settle. That's magnetic. That's powerful. And that's what commands respect, not just from others, but from yourself. Let's make it practical. Think of one area of your life where you're tolerating less than you deserve, a friendship that feels one-sided, a job that drains you, a relationship that dims your light. What would happen if you walked away? Not out of anger, but out of love for yourself. Start small, set a boundary in that situation today. Say no to one demand that doesn't align with your values. Take one step towards something better. As Carl Jung would say, walking away is how you integrate your true self, how you become whole. And when you're whole, respect follows naturally, because you've shown the world you're worth it. This boundary is your ultimate declaration of power. It's the courage to choose yourself, even when it's hard, even when it hurts. When you're ready to walk away, you stop chasing approval and start building a life that reflects your highest self. You become the person others look at and think, they're different. Stay tuned for our outro, where we'll tie these boundaries together and show you how to step into a life where respect is yours by design. Imagine us stepping into a room, your presence so grounded, so unshakable, that everyone feels it before you even speak. That's the power of the 5 boundaries we've explored today. Inspired by Carl Jung's timeless wisdom on becoming your truest self. From never tolerating disrespect to protecting your inner peace, keeping your mystery, mastering your emotions, and being ready to walk away. These aren't just rules for earning respect. They're the blueprint for building a life where respect is your default. You're not chasing approval anymore. You're designing a world where your worth speaks for itself. Let's wrap this up with a story that shows what happens when you live these boundaries fully. Meet Emily, a 32-year-old writer who once felt invisible. She let friends overstep her boundaries, stayed in a job that undervalued her, and poured her heart into relationships that left her drained. But after discovering Carl Jung's teachings on individuation, the journey to wholeness, she decided to change. She stopped tolerating snide comments from colleagues, saying, "I don't appreciate that tone. Let's keep it professional." She carved out evenings for herself, journaling and reading to protect her peace. She shared less about her struggles, letting her quiet confidence speak instead. When drama arose, she stayed calm, choosing her responses with care, and when her toxic workplace refused to change, she walked away, launching her own freelance career. Today, Emily walks with a strength that turns heads. Her friends seek her advice. Her clients value her work. And her relationships are built on mutual respect. Why? Because Emily didn't just set boundaries, she lived them. She became the person Carl Jung envisioned: whole, authentic, and undeniably powerful. That's the life waiting for you. When you embrace these 5 boundaries, you're not just earning respect from others, you're reclaiming it for yourself. You're stepping into a version of you that doesn't beg, doesn't shrink, doesn't settle. As Carl Jung would say, this is your journey to individuation, where every boundary you set brings you closer to the person you were born to be. So, what's your next step? Pick one boundary from today. Maybe it's saying no to disrespect or guarding your peace, and start living it right now. Notice how the world shifts when you do. If this video struck a chord, don't let it end here. Subscribe to Jung's Psyche Hub and hit the bell, so you never miss an insight on unlocking your authentic self. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it: a friend, a colleague, anyone ready to command respect. And drop a comment below. Which boundary are you setting today? Let's start a movement of people who live with strength, clarity, and purpose. Your journey to a life of respect starts now. Make it unforgettable.